You've taken my disguise. You want me to be just me. Now I'm ready, life. You forced me back to basics. I have lost my instincts. My back hurts, and my pills pains like thunder. Bones remain. Who is she?
So I'm adding a trigger warning to this one because we're going to be talking about child remains, and we're going to be looking at some photos that were included in the NamUs file for the Carroll County Doe that was found on September 6th of 2022. So how I want to start with this is I'm bringing this up again as a potential Summer Wells match due to the fact that I spoke to Dawn and Candace the other day, and they said they didn't even know about this, that no one ever talked to them. They've never put any DNA in. There has been nothing done to exclude Summer as being the possible Carroll County child doe. So the case can maybe move forward if we could at least get this doe excluded. There have been a few other children who have been excluded, but she has not, which I find odd due to the fact that she matches the description and it's very close to their house. It's not that far at all. It's within 2 hours of Ben Hill Road. So September 6th, child remains were found on a property in an area of Carroll County, Virginia, and it's called Fancy Gap. The circumstances around it were a citizen came forward reporting they found a trash can, and inside the trash can were the remains along with a sleeping bag, some blankets, and some fabric. The estimated age range for these remains were 4 to 7 years old. They were unable to determine the sex of the child, unable to determine the race. The only thing that they did find were some strands of 1 to 2 inch undetermined color hair. That was straight hair. And it was partial skeleton remains, not recognizable. Yet there were 1 to 2 strands of straight hair. 1 to 2 inches, I'm sorry. There were strands, remnants of 1 to 2 inch strands of straight hair. I just don't understand why they haven't tried to exclude Summer Wells from this doe, this Carroll County doe. At first, I was a little bit confused because it did say that the PMI was 5 years, yet they tested a child who it had been 20 years. So the reason I feel Summer Wells needs to be excluded from this one or testing needs to be done to try to exclude her or to see if this is her, is because I started looking into PMI, and I realized it's not an exact science. It could be off by years. Years. Once a body has decomposed, and there's not that much tissue left on the body, it's very hard to determine then time of death. So this is the map here where it shows the location where the body was found, or the remains were found. This is when you click on the GPS from the NamUs map. This is where it leads to this area right here. And if you look, it's actually like the yard and property of someone right in the middle of their yard. And I thought that was kind of interesting that it would be just like right in the middle of their yard like that. And it makes me wonder if it wasn't always there. I looked up the homeowner, and it is a guy named Michael Lowe, and he inherited this property. But when you look at his Facebook, even it shows him like he has big mowing like tractors and stuff, and it shows him mowing all this out there. It's all maintained. It's like farming land. So this is the child right here. His father came forward to try and get excluded, and he was excluded. He is not Logan Bowman. He went missing 20 years ago. It was determined it's not his remains. At first they thought maybe it was, but if you see on the NamUs, he's in one of the as an exclusion, so it's not him. There was another child, and her name is Dulcie Alaves. She was a female Hispanic child who went missing September of 2019. She also was excluded. This is where I pulled up the maps to see, because I wanted to actually see who really owned this property. And it's actually like the whole area right there. It's like right in the remains were found right exactly in the middle of both of those two properties, but it's owned by the same person. Both of those two properties are owned by the same person. And it's very much like farming land. And it shows like in 2019 and 2017 is when they became his. And I wanted to look at, well, how far was it from Ben Hill? And it's only a 2-hour and 12-minute drive. The second owner to the property was the Mary Lowe, and that was his wife, but they're divorced. They've been divorced for a while. So this next stuff, I want to say just, I'm going to pause it for a second here, and I'm going to give you a chance. So we are going to be looking at the photos from the recovery. There's no pictures at all of like the remains, but what it is pictures of is the sleeping bag and the blanket and the fabric, the items that were found with the remains. That you can see that there was, there's evidence left of decomposition that you can see, and insect activity. Prior insect activity. So if this is something that you feel you're unable to look at, please don't. I'm telling you now, because we are going to look at it. And if this offends you or triggers you in any way, I'm just going to say we are going to look at the items, the evidence that was found with the remains. Um, and what is noted, it is a gray sleeping bag with like a light blue fuzzy interior. And as you can see, you could see the um, shells from the fly larvae. And the way that the insects look on it, it looks like it could have even been the child was inside the sleeping bag, but it said there it was found near it in the trash can. So that, I think it's the floral blanket. It was like a pink and white flower blanket. So this is what I wanted to talk about here. The predictive power of the researchers' new models show that the more accurately estimated postmortem intervals than the Magayazi ETAL method. So there's so many things that you could talk about in determining the PMI. Um, there are many different researchers and studies being done who, in different areas they're trying to sell. I wouldn't say sell for money, but put out different methods of determining, and they want to say their method is better than others, but there's actually like no method that's really accurate right now. It's all like the medical examiner's own personal opinion, and that's it. And like depending on the medical examiner's abilities is where you stand with it on if you're going to get an accurate PMI or not. And even with somebody with like very high education and studies in this, they still can be incorrect due to the fact that environmental, weather, insect activity, all of those things change how a body decomposes. So once you reach a high level of decomposition in a body, um, there's not really anything left to help um, the medical examiner or coroner or any of the people involved to really make an estimate, other than it had to be at least, a certain period of time to have reached that level. It didn't happen yesterday. That, we'll just put it that way, because there's so many methods of TMI for remains that are found in not high, in lower stages of decomposition. It's so easy to tell by the temperature of the body, stages of rigor mortis, different areas of the body that have decomposed versus other areas. Where was this body, like if it was in water, if it was buried, all of these things change how a body decomposes, and they're able to determine these things a lot easier when there's still some type of evidence left on the bones. Once a body gets to a point of very high decomposition where all that's left are some bones, it changes how they're able to determine it. And so I went in and I was just really looking at this to see, why would why wouldn't they test this Carroll County Doe against Summer's family to see, if it's Summer, would it make sense or not to do it?
Stand up against the wall, so I can trace you with one fine line.
So what I realized is, was it because of the PMI? Is that the reason? But it was 1 year and 3 months from the time she disappeared to the time these remains were found. Um, her being so small, how long would it take for a body to reach that? Would a year and 3 months be long enough? So I started looking at these other um, trials and studies that were done. And one of the things, this one was done in Canada, and it was saying that they did a test and they were using 42 cases with PMIs. The results indicated the bodies exposed to warm temperatures consistently overestimated the known PMI by a large and inconsistent margin. And then also at the same time, the body's exposed to cold and freezing temperatures, then the PMI was dramatically underestimated. It also changed whether a body was buried, um, or the circumstances involved, what the environment was like at the time. So I thought that was interesting that they said it, like, Summer went missing in June. So her highest stages of decomposition would have occurred during the hottest months. So, I mean, could that be a factor in it? Um, I know a lot of people still want to believe she's alive. I don't know. I don't know. I am just looking at a comparison here. If it was her, if this could be her and these remains found, and trying to see if there's some type of comparison. I'm not saying this to be fact. I have no idea. All I know is she went missing and there was a body and remains of a body found a year and 3 months later, 2 hours from her house, that match her description. And I think it needs to be looked at again, or looked at. I think, like I said, I talked to the parents, I talked to Dawn and Candace, and they have not, they didn't know anything about it. No one's ever come to them and said, "Hey, you want to have Summer excluded? Do you want to do testing? Let's, see if this is her." And nothing. They've never had anybody contact them. So, and I had said, I was talking to them and I was thinking, well, maybe, it's the kind of situation now, with it being just a missing person case, that law enforcement, I'm not saying it's turned into a cold case, but I know everybody always says it's still very active, but how active is that? A child's remains is found 2 hours from their house that match her description. And I mean, even it says a pink and orange cloth was found with it. Like, and she was said to have had a pink shirt on. Like, I mean, in the hair, short, straight hair. Why wouldn't they have thought, like, hey, this kind of matches her description? Maybe we need to, like, let's exclude her. But nobody has. Nobody came forward. I don't know if it's because it's in two separate states, but it does show that they excluded a child from New Jersey even. So this is some records here that I had pulled up of the owner, like, so you could still see it was Michael Lowe. The property was 715 Kelly Road. That's where the body was found. It's a little frustrating when law enforcement says that they're still doing everything they can. The thing I wanted to show, like that, the guy who owned the property was a truck driver. All that whole area is like truck drivers, so that's interesting too. That who knows? He worked for that company, David Williams Trucking, the person who owned that property where the body was found. It was David Williams Trucking. And like I guess, and I read an article about it where he even said it on his Facebook there that in January that was the end. He was no longer he was closing his company, his trucking company. And then he there was another article written, I saw that there was 40 employees due to him closing that lost their jobs. So that was showing that he had, at one point, by the time he was closing, he had 40 people working for him. And one of these people that worked for him was that Michael Lowe, the owner of that property where these remains were found. And then I was kind of looking at the company. They do long haul, so they do travel like from state to state. There was a couple addresses associated with them. One was very local to that same Carroll County area, and then there also was one in Kentucky. Um, and I don't know if maybe those were people that drove for him. So those were their addresses. So that's why it linked to that company. But it did show like North Carolina, Virginia, Kentucky. What was weird is I did not see very much in Tennessee, and I don't know why. Not very many addresses at all came back to Tennessee linked to any of these people. But I will say one thing that was so strange to me, that the last name Dobbs links back to this guy. Now, I can't find like a connection to Jackie Dobbs, but at the same time, Jackie Dobbs is estranged from all of his family. Like the only people that you see with Dobbs, the Dobbs name associated with him are his two children. So it's like he's completely, for some reason, estranged, and has like there's no connection at all to any of his Dobbs side of his family. And I thought that was kind of weird. And the fact that this Michael Lowe guy, he actually, like, he has a lot of Dobbs in his family. Like his mom was a Dobbs originally. Like she was a Dobbs. He has aunts, uncles, they're all Dobbs. Like there's a lot. So I thought that was kind of weird. And we do know, and see, I kind of ruled Dobbs out. I did look at him a lot, but I mean, he did say he went, was staying in Churchill. He didn't go back home to Georgia. I'm gonna have to look back into it again because he was saying he went to go see some family or something. I wonder if it was in Virginia, and then he went back to Georgia. So I thought that was weird that this Michael Lowe did have a lot of Dobbs family members, like family members with the last name Dobbs. I mean, I don't know how common that name is, but to be honest, I never heard that name until this case. So I never knew anybody with the last name Dobbs, Dobbs. So, and it's a pretty big group of people, the Dobbs, so I thought that was weird. The second connection that I saw also, which is like, I'm just looking at every single suspect in my mind and every scenario is Pilot Mountain, North Carolina. So Pilot Mountain, North Carolina is where the tree trimmer Randy lived. That's where he was living. Um, the tree trimmer that stayed after the incident that day, and then the tree trimmer that left and then was sick and never came back again. He was living in Pilot Mountain, North Carolina. So, um, what I found interesting in that is to get from Ben Hill Road to Pilot Mountain, North Carolina, you would take those roads because of the Appalachian Mountains there. There's like big mountain ranges that you can't just drive straight across. Like if you look at a map, it looks really close. Um, I was looking like it doesn't look that far from Tennessee, but you can't just drive through a mountain. So there are some little roads that go through, but the most common way and the way that Google even suggests that you get there is you go up through Virginia. And it would be also that same route near where this house was, where there was where the remains were found. So that's another thing I thought was kind of interesting, was that connection there. That would be the route that Randy, the tree trimmer, would have been taking to go home to North Carolina, the tree trimmer that never came back to work. So those were a few connections that I was seeing. I'm still looking in. None of these things are like exact and for sure. Like I said, I can't find Jackie Dobbs being related to these people, yet I can't find Jackie Dobbs being related to anybody other than his two children. So he pretty much just poofed and existed one day. But he has no family history for some reason, and I don't understand it. Like he's completely estranged from his family. But I just thought, due to the fact, like I said, me talking with Dawn and Candace and them not knowing anything about it, never having Summer being excluded from being this Carroll County Doe, I thought it's very important maybe to bring it back up again, especially after looking at the statistical facts and the studies done on PMIs and how incorrect they could be. They're completely inaccurate most of the time. Once they're to that point of decomp, they can't really determine it. It could be off by years. So with a PMI of 5 years, you know, and it had only been a year and 3 months, it still could fit due to that, the inaccuracy of PMIs. And the fact that two other children they thought possibly these remains could belong to were excluded already. So we need to have Candace and Don move forward with this. And unfortunately, with missing children, um, it's like, let me turn this off real quick. The with the missing children, try. How can I get this back? Okay. All right, there we go. So with missing children, it's kind of like on the parents now. Like the parents have to pay for the DNA testing. The parents have to go out, they have to do it themselves. You know, it's like law enforcement, it's not really there. Nobody's there for them. Now, there may be some funds and uh uh, like uh like money and things in the NamUs, the missing, and exploited children. In some of those organizations, they may have funding that will pay for these things to be done. But like law enforcement doesn't just pay for this stuff and do it. They really don't. Like it's like on the responsibility of the parents. And Donna Candace didn't know that. When I was talking to them, they didn't know that. They thought that law enforcement would come to them and just tell them this and this and that. And unfortunately that's not the case. They're going to have to reach out. Don said he's going to talk to TBI and he's going to talk to his private investigators about it to try and see if they could have something done to get some testing done to see maybe if this is Summer. But I thought that was very, very important to discuss, that this is this child, like this body was found, everybody just like, oh, let it go, like nothing, because they just assumed something would be said, something would be done if it's Summer. And that's not the case. Nothing was done. Nothing was done. The only two children that were tested, it was because the parents reached out. The parents went to law enforcement and they asked if they could be tested to see if this is their child. It's like crazy to me. Like, you just would think the system worked differently, but it doesn't. It really doesn't. So for me, there's still a high chance that this could be the remains of Summer Wells. Maybe Summer Wells, I just don't understand why TBI hasn't. They acted like they were so interested in solving this case and everything, yet like they really have done nothing. And then, so here you have child's remains found 2 hours away from the Wells property. And they did nothing to investigate to see if this was Summer Wells. Nothing. Yet here then Fred says this about Cotton Simpson. Like, how much did they really even go look and investigate that? It's like, what are they investigating? I see nothing. Like, I see nothing. They just keep coming out and saying, "Oh, it's still active," but what have we seen? I mean, do they not have updates because they're just not doing anything? To me, if I was working a missing child's case and 2 hours from the location my missing child came from, a child's remains were found that matched the description of the child that's missing, I would have been there looking. And if that didn't happen, it didn't happen. The parents were never reached out to. No DNA was taken. No testing was done. It didn't happen. That's weird to me. Like, what are they doing for real? Like, I really wanted to believe that law enforcement was really active in doing something. But then to see this, and even if we don't want to believe the parents, say we don't want to believe the parents, right? Even if you don't want to believe them and maybe they were told and all this and they didn't tell me the truth. Okay? If that's the case, then Summerwell's picture and an exclusion card would be listed on NamUs along with the other two children. So that means she wasn't excluded. And she wasn't excluded because they didn't test. They didn't follow through to exclude her. And if she's not excluded and they did do testing, are they just not, is it just not updated? I don't know, but like, I would think so because the one testing was done like in February. And I don't know. I tend to believe these websites. I believe what they say. I don't have any reason to doubt Don and Candace in any way. They said they didn't know anything about that body being found out there and that nobody's come to them about it and asked them. So it's like, what the hell? What how could you like not test? I don't even get it. Like, it just like, I just assumed, like, I let it all go. I assumed, oh yeah, they ruled her out, or they would have, like, something would have been said. Nothing was said and nothing's happened. So and then it makes me think, so, what if there's other does found, like in other states, like further away? Like, if they don't even test the child that's found 2 hours from their house, do you think they're testing um unidentified children that are found that are like in different states far away? Probably not. Probably not at all. They haven't, as far as Don and Candace are concerned, they haven't even never tested on any remains found or any unidentified children's bodies found. No one's ever tried to make any kind of connections. So I wanted just to talk about this today because it was just upsetting to me to hear from the parents and then to go and keep looking and see that this Carroll County, Virginia child doe, this little doe, is still unidentified. And like, nobody's try to make any kind of connections. Um, please like this video if you like it, and subscribe to my channel if you feel the content that I talk about is interesting to you. I mean, I might not always be right. Like I said, I'm a speculatory theory, type channel. Sometimes I'm a little conspiracy kind of, but um, I feel like I like to look at all of the stuff, the things that, and deep dive into things that are around cases. And if that's something you're interested in, whether I'm right or wrong in the end, it's very interesting some of the stuff that you find out about people that are around around these situations in these cases, you know. So please like and subscribe, and I will continue to look further into this and see what else I could find. I really would like to see if I could talk to this Michael Lowe guy to see if he's actually the one who found the body or if it was somebody on his property that found it. But I'm going to reach out to him and see if he'll talk to me. But thank you guys, and thanks for watching, and thumbs it up.